Let's discuss this with Alex Wood from Tech City News. And that's part of the point, isn't it? That you can link it with these other services. In fact, Google makes you link it with YouTube, for example.
Absolutely. I mean, Gmail has been a core part of all of the services that Google's been offering. If you look back in 2004, 10 years ago, think about what kind of email we were using back then. When Gmail launched, it was audacious. The idea that you could get 1 gigabyte worth of space completely changed the market. And I think the really key thing to remember is that it locked people into a world of Google because they had that amazing service from the email.
Just talk about how they do make the money and how technically it works.
So, as you mentioned, advertising is one of the key ways that they make money. But also, one thing that's often overlooked is there are millions and millions, around 5 million people estimated, that are actually paying directly for the service as well. And
to avoid adverts in the process.
Exactly. And a lot of these people are small to medium-sized businesses, the kind of business that we cover, along with universities as well. And what you've got to bear in mind is that if you remember, again, back to the early days of email, how much of a nightmare was it to be able to actually search? Google has the world's most amazing search, and they built that into the email, and that has got people hooked. And so businesses around the world are looking at this because it's costing around maybe £5, maybe $7 a month per user to be able to set up enterprise-level email for their company when they're small, and they grow with that, and then they grow and they grow, and they're locked into Google's world.
How does Google make it profitable for them then? Because surely the costs of putting all this on and this endless sort of capacity in terms of space, it must be huge.
Absolutely. I mean, the costs involved in actually storing all that data, the average Gmail user has sometimes thousands of gigabytes worth of space. But, I mean, my company is a great example of it. You get locked into it because then you start using Google Docs. And then you stop using Microsoft Office. You move over to all of the Google services. I pay Google the best part of hundreds of pounds a year now just for the extra storage for my company. And so what Google's created is not just a Gmail service, but actually
it's a gateway into the rest of the stuff.
Exactly.
Let's look at how Gmail stacks up against its competitors briefly. Gmail has 105 million monthly users in the US. In distant second, Yahoo, 82 million users. Outlook, nearly 30 million. AOL email, just shy of 20 million. So it's a hugely powerful service. Do you think there's something bigger here, though, that they want Gmail to be at the centre of everyone's online lives, not just their Google lives, as it were?
I think the whole conversation in technology at the moment is about a land grab. You look at the way that Facebook's behaving at the moment, they want you to sign in through Facebook for everything, Google through Google+, and lots of other services they're creating. It's all about getting you to have that central point where you sign in, use your information, they capture that, and you live through a Google experience on the internet. So I think you're completely right. It's about owning things.
They've been quite honest, haven't they, unlike Facebook sometimes, about how privacy is being invaded. We can say that because they scan the emails, but they say you're getting something in return for that. But how much of a concern is that invasion of privacy with Google email specifically?
I think when they first launched, they had a lot of criticism about it, and people found it very uncomfortable, this idea of computers reading through your emails, and, you know, who has permission for that? It's interesting, I think, that society has got used to that idea over the last 10 years, but after some of the outbreaks with NSA and a lot of the discussions about privacy, it's really interesting if you look at their competitors. So Microsoft, with now what's called Outlook.com, they really market hard on this idea that our service doesn't read your email, you can feel safe with us, and I think it's interesting that the whole market is moving towards a more greater consciousness of privacy as an issue.
But these aren't people looking through the emails, are they? As you say, it's computers looking for keywords, so actually there isn't a huge amount of concern if it specifically is just that.
You're completely right. I think, you know, some people have maybe a legitimate concern that they don't know. At the end of the day, when you're not paying something online, I think, you know, I have a great phrase that I think if you don't want something to be known publicly, do not put it on the internet. If you're that worried and you're not paying for a service, I think that's a dynamic that a lot of users need to get used to, the idea that your security is not always paramount and you are putting it in the hands of another organisation.
The concern might be that security services might decide to go to Google to read your email. How easy is that for them to do, technically?
It depends on the jurisdiction, but I mean, as we've seen most recently with the NSA leaks that have been happening, it seems like it's happening a lot more than we ever imagined. And so for that reason, I think a lot more people should be paying attention to these kind of issues and more careful about what they do online.